I'll wear it like this more often.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Anisa Taron, and I'm here with my co-host Jamila, and a very interesting man by the name of Ron. And I'm so intrigued to see what he's going to bring to the conversation, and I'm a little bit nervous. Can you believe it? I'm actually a little bit nervous as the host because just before we came live, he mentioned that don't worry about the curveballs because I might throw that ball right back at you. So looking forward to see what balls are going to be thrown our way. For those that are joining, this is the shifting from grudge to grit, grace, and gratitude conversation, where we share real stories, authentic stories of how many of us move out of that space from being in grudge state to grit, grace, and gratitude. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our esteemed guest. 50 years young, I'm not going to say old, 50 years young, father of two, a retail sales executive for 25 years, working in all sectors of apparel. I can see he likes the apparel by the brand he's wearing there today, and footwear and accessories retail. Worked in all major retail companies in all major regions of South Africa. Currently managing director of Drip Footwear, but also embarking on sideline business of importing clothing. I'm coming to Joburg. I need a new wardrobe, please. And my sideline business of the imported clothing and equipment, as well as consulting for other retailers in building their strategic platform for success. Develop brands such as Old Khaki. Those that don't know, that's, I think, a South African brand. I don't know those that are on from wherever they're joining us. Maybe you'll just expand if there's any international footprint there. And then John Craig and Pepco, again, some local big players in the South African market, and designing strategies and business plans for their businesses while trying to balance a healthy work-life balance. Fun, impatient, suffer from ADHD, super creative, have great understanding of numbers and balance sheets. Okay, I suck at that. A generalist in business and considered a hunter. Create and break down a business and then rebuild it instantly. Okay, departing from not a farmer and long stays in business. Okay, so there's a lot there to this esteemed guest, Ron. Jamila, maybe you want to just share with us how you have gotten to know him.
Share a little bit about how Ron and I met, and it was, of course, through paddle, and my dear friend Etienne, who was on the panel with us. But yeah, I think our friendship spans now for between 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, if not longer.
If not longer, and with the topic being shifting from a grudge state through challenging times and moving into grit, hard work, recognizing who you are, and progressing thereafter to grace and gratitude. There was one person who stuck out most in my mind, and that would be Ron. And because of I know him as being truly, truly authentic. And what you see is what you get. And that's a whole lot. All good.
Do I talk?
Wait your turn.
Okay.
A podcast just for you. But anyway, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Ron and let him intrigue us over the next hour about his amazing
I love that.
Well, when I do master of ceremonies at weddings and funerals or whatever, I'm super confident. But when you sit down for something that's planned like this, the butterflies start going. I will start off by saying that I'm 50 years old and I've been tired for about 48 years. I've been hiding and acting, and I've been doing my bit to protect myself. if I'm super. And I use a lot of humor and self-deprecating humor to ease situations. So I can get quite serious as well. And then when it gets too serious, we throw in a little bit of humor. Otherwise, it's no fun. So yeah, I was born in Cape Town. I came up here, got 15, 16 years ago for work. Married to a lovely woman by the name of Mandy. Had 2 stunning kids, and life actually was pretty good. We had the right cars. We had the right handbags. We had the right overseas Facebook pics, and everything was really about a show on 2 fronts. One, to show what I could do, and the other one was to show the world that how successful we were. I mean, that's we speak about jumping in, and when I say I'm tired, I think that's the upkeep of that lifestyle and that image is tiring. And I'm the last of 6 kids. We grew up in Cape Town, moved here, and for me, being the youngest out of the 6, I was always fighting to prove my worth in the family, always fighting to be more successful than the siblings. And right now, I am more successful because it's a choice. No, I'm just kidding. And I'm tired, and I've been tired up until about 2 years ago. And for me, the transformation of breaking free and letting go of a lot of the what I call almost my physical drag in life, things that are holding me back. You're fighting against the tide all the time, trying to prove something, trying to prove your worth, trying to prove how successful you are, trying to prove how clever you are. And it's been tiring. But I reached a plateau, regroup, consolidate. My life is like a business, and then I've pushed on, which I'll get to some detail just now.
Yeah, I mean, the theme of today is very much around celebrating authenticity and embracing self-love and self-acceptance. And if you were tired for 48 years of this very young 50 years of your life, besides the things that you've just described there, what are some of those masks that you were wearing? Besides maybe the people pleaser, maybe even the hero, rescuer, savior, archetypal role that you might have played. Share with us those masks that you were wearing.
So we're a family of 8, very close, and we were our cousins and our school friends always were quite envious of how close our family was. We all lived at one stage within 3 kilometers of each other, and then my sister went to the UK. That was a shock. The family broke up. Then my brother came out as gay, and that was another shock. I kind of knew, and then we didn't know how to tell the rest of the family and the folks. And eventually, he and his friend went to Australia and came out to my folks, and they were absolutely grateful. I think one of the biggest shocks, being the youngest and always trying to prove myself, was trying to be funny and trying to take the lead, almost like on an inversion. I think the turning point came where my oldest brother, who was like a father figure, he taught me about the birds and the bees and the girls, suffered from depression and unfortunately committed suicide 15 years ago. So that was my father figure who shaped everything. He was the cleverest person I knew. He was a rocket scientist who worked for Denel, so full marks for maths and maths higher grade, an overthinker, which we all tend to.
Yeah.
And it was like a murder in the family. It was like an explosion in the family, and everybody fell apart except for the youngest that stood up. So that was one of the first times where I took charge. I chose the clothes, I chose the coffin, I chose the hymn, the flowers, the whatnot. And since that time, it's always been about trying to protect the family, trying to stand up, and that's just kind of one aspect. That's been 15 years of when the anniversaries come around, saying everything is cool and no worries. Meanwhile, it's eating you up inside. So, but I always wanted to portray strength, resilience to the family. And I remember the day that my brother died, my father shouted at me and said, "Why aren't you crying? Why aren't you crying?" And I said, No, I'll cry just now. I held him, held my mum, held everybody. I did a 45-minute eulogy. It was hysterically funny, if everybody knows me. And it was about lightheartedness. The other big milestones for me were having two kids who are so precious to me, 22 years old and 16. And alongside dealing with that grief of my brother Michael was, as the youngest, still trying to get ahead, still trying to prove that I was cleverer than him, cleverer than my sister, more successful than my other sister, etc., nicer than my one brother. And it got to a stage now where something really snapped, and my marriage ended after 22 years. And for me, it was a turning point psychologically to say, live your truth, live your truth. And you can't see it now, but I have a friend here who's off camera, and he's one of the first people that I actually came out to. I came out as gay 2 years ago after masking and hiding and acting straight for 48 years. I lost close to 40 kgs in 7 months through nutrition, through wanting to live on a different platform of healthiness and truthfulness. And in a way, it was such a momentous thing for me to come out. And the family was supportive, my brother being gay, so we got many queens in the family now. And for me, it was so cathartic and so fantastic. I ran out of the closet, and nobody was kind of ready for it. It was such a lonely experience because I just thought everybody would accept it and everybody would embrace, And so being the funny man of every party and dinner party and family function and wedding and master of ceremonies, acting and using humor so people wouldn't guess that I was gay, people wouldn't guess that I wasn't that successful. That's my tired theme coming through.
Yes.
And for me, to the naivety of coming out and then expecting this to be 100% normal, like I've seen it on TV, it's not the case. There's a superficiality. I don't know if there's a word. People are superficial about accepting and then keeping distance. So nobody likes this big mouth. I thought everybody would love this, So yet again, from dealing with humor and being the class clown and in the corporate world, not being afraid of anybody, taking on CEOs and chairmen with humor, with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek stuff, I find myself freer than ever, living my truth, and lonelier than ever. I divorced my wife. She got some of our friends moved away. And suddenly now what was supposed to be my absolute truth was a fairly lonely experience, although I still had my kids and I still had one or two friends. And people like Jamila who just accept you for what you are, we and Etienne, and we just reached a plateau where it was just kind of normalized. I joined the paddle team, and that was exercise, clear your thoughts, rush of serotonin, and really just the ability to interact as myself with strangers again, as opposed to what everybody knew about me being a class clown. So I ripped that mask off about 2 years ago. The first 6-7 months were actually okay, but now I'm rebuilding. I've met somebody. I have a great network of friends. I'm doing my own business from an entrepreneurial spirit, and I feel more positive than ever about life and about being grateful.
It's quite a transformation story, hey? Journey that you've been on, Ron. And I think that we all go through this emotional and soulful fatigue when we get to a place where we realize that we've got to start living our lives for ourselves.
Yeah.
We put on these masks when we want to people please because we want to be accepted. And it can only go for such a long time before it bombs out and explodes. And normally when it gets to that point, it may seem like it's a really lonely phase, but it's a beginning of your new phase. And the people that are not meant to be around in your life or in your space at that time, it's that process of allowing them to let go or letting go of them for other new people who are meant to be in your space and on the vibration or frequency that you are relating to at that point. But it does feel quite lonely. But it's incredible the people that you start to attract, people that you never ever have thought would come across your path. I mean, there's, we would have never, our paths would never have crossed. But I think we're on the same journey of finding ourselves and embracing the inner child and the true self that we are. And it allows us, Anissa, we've been speaking about this, to attract people like yourself into our lives. And it's amazing what a new, beautiful, embracing world that we are building for ourselves.
I think one of the things, Anissa, sorry to interrupt you, was you spoke about vibration. And I must be honest with you, when you are indoctrinated in a way that you should be in terms of living a certain way, acting a certain way, so nobody could guess that you were gay. Nobody could guess that you had this turmoil. You were always the star of the show. I went to go see some voodoo stuff in terms of spiritualism, which I really poo-pooed. And I was a skeptic, and I really just, from a vulnerability point of view, opened myself up, went for meditation sessions, wasn't too sure about this. And I'll tell you something, that subconscious that came through, that state of consciousness and dreamlike, the theta state, I had some really strong moments. I want to tell you about the one, the one, as I finished the session, the guy said to me, how was it? I said to him, I need to speak to my ex-wife. I need to. So with my ex-wife, after 22 years, all I wanted to do, like in business, was win. I wanted to beat her. I wanted to win with the lawyers. I wanted to make sure I didn't pay that much. I wanted to make sure I won all the time. And just in terms of that selfishness, that moment, I realized she's lost her husband, who she didn't know. She's looking after kids, 50-50. Gone are the expensive cars and the handbags and the whatnot, and security of my income and all that stuff. And she is scared. She's scared. And how dare I take on somebody who's scared? That's being a complete bully. So I just reached out to her, and we've really had, there's been bumps and scrapes, don't get me wrong, but the last 4 months out of 2.5 years have been really amazing, where we have a coffee together, which before we would never have done. So, if you truly open yourself to vibration with people and meeting new people and new circles of friends, there's an inward journey that I've discovered about being kind, being vulnerable, and showing things. And not everyone's going to like this big mouth and the talk. That, for me, those life lessons are super, super important. Being able to really be open. I quit my job in November last year, had burnout. My partner, Andre, said I can play padel tennis for 6 months. And the guy said, be open to this. And I started to get bored, and suddenly things rushed in, opportunities, etc., etc. Some have panned out, some haven't. But I tell you something, and the minute I'm bogged down in terms of trying to sort businesses out, that work-life balance struggles. And that work-life balance isn't just necessarily about your friends and your family. It's about balancing your inside, dropping the anxiety, stop building the mask up again. It's all right to fail. And that's what I'm learning, as opposed to 48 years of you're not allowed to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something very important is the aspect of vulnerability, which we do not allow ourselves. We're so afraid of allowing ourselves to be, to protect ourselves. But I think also, once you allow yourself to be vulnerable, once you allow yourself to embrace the emotions that you're going to start to trust yourself, that's when you can reflect that on those around you, which is what I think you did then with your ex-wife, is that you started to look at her world through your eyes, through your experience, and to offer her that grace.
And so many things about human nature is just wanting to win, right? I want to win at paddle. I want to win at weight loss. I want to win at the car drive. I want to win at the charity amount to charity. And it's tiring. You've got to. There is another perspective that's in your blind spot. And the vulnerability, you never show. Vulnerability is my blind spot. I never want to show it. And I never want to portray it at all. I've always got to be a straight, strong male figure. Always. I don't have to. Now Jamila gives me pink cups of coffee, just to profile. What is this? What type of talk is this?
Ron, as you're talking, I can connect to quite a bit of that identity crisis throughout my life. I mean, gosh, I'm fair skinned, very fair skinned. So I stood out in my school life most of the years because I grew up in a predominantly colored area in South Africa, in Cape Town. So it's like I was always standing out like a sore thumb, and I knew I didn't belong, and always trying to find a way to fit in, to do the right thing. Fast forward also 18 years of marriage, 25 or 26 years of being together. I realized, hey, that relationship foundation was built on the wrong reasons, but I got. Was that my side? Did I lose you guys there?
You're there for a bit, Anissa, but you're back now.
Okay. So, like you, this judgment lens that we live our lives with, because that's what it is. We judge. We're so quick to judge. But when we can take that pause, as you rightly say, and have deep, radical empathy and compassion for the other person in front of us, the other person in the circumstance or the experience alongside with us, it brings not only us peace, but them peace as well. Like
Yeah.
you, I have a very good relationship with my ex-husband. Even though most people will say, but are you crazy? He's not bringing his part in many ways, but I have to look at the gifts of what was in the marriage. So yesterday being Eid, we did lots of visits, right? And it's interesting. I met this guy last year, and also he was talking about when he came out when he was gay and was frowned upon. He's Muslim, so it's how it's usually frowned upon in the Muslim faith. I think in most faiths it's like taboo. You can't,
Correct.
right? But I see this person in front of me, and I see his humility, and I see his kindness. And even my 17-year-old son was saying, well, he's such a beautiful person. And that's what I see. And we were talking about this vibrational energy thing yesterday, and we were saying that once we go through this life-defining experiences, when we're waking up and we're just tired because we've been asleep, but with exhaustion along the way, we realize that those people that were in our lives are no longer meant to be in our lives. So we do lose people along the way. But something that he said stuck out for me, him and the other lady that was there in this conversation yesterday, and they said, but hold on, it's not so much coming from an ego space that we've outgrown these people, but there's just no more common ground. And that's okay. And so when there's no longer a common ground, there's no longer going to be a connection, or at least a meaningful connection. So whilst they might be in our lives, we don't have to have them consuming our lives any longer.
Sure.
So, I mean, tell me about the people in your life that the loneliness part that you've spoken about. Because is it really loneliness when you discern it properly, or is it a reality check of who should be in your life?
I'm going to give you a very good point. I'm going to give you a super example. People ask me, well, my brother came out 17 years ago, and eventually told the family, and was absolutely accepted. My late father, was gracious. In fact, spent more time on the telephone in Australia talking to my brother's partner, Paul, than he did to his own son. I have had this kind of slightly distant relationship with my family of 6, being the youngest. But I will tell you that my wife's family, we saw when we were in Cape Town, we lived in Cape Town, we saw them 4 or 5 times a week. Friday night dinner, Saturday braai, Sunday night dinner. And naively speaking, I expected, I did the speeches at the 60th, I organized this, I was the fun, I was one of the oldest sons they've got 2 sons, but I was always the oldest son. I kissed my father-in-law, I saved his life at a dinner party, gave him the Heimlich maneuver, choking. These were people in my life that shut me down within seconds. So my father figure and my motherly figures I got from my mother-in-law, my in-laws. They were superb. The family was unity. I loved that. And within an instant vacuum went because naively, so blood is thicker than water. So do you say that shouldn't be my life? I would naively again love to have coffee and dinner with my ex-wife and her new boyfriend, Mark. But people aren't ready for that, and people aren't ready
Yeah.
to be back in my life. Yet they were one of my absolute rocks in terms of right and wrong, decision making, financial agreement, that how to raise the grandkids. It was probably near perfect, and that went in a nanosecond. A nanosecond, where I try to reach out and. So there's certain aspects of leadership that I still want in my life, and I think they should still be in my life. But there are other people that have now dissipated, not through any negativity, but just the paths are different. And I happen to be
Sure.
on a new path, meeting new people and getting new experiences about and talking about things that I would never have been speaking about 5 years ago, like vibration and your inner blind spots and gratitude sessions and stuff like that. Things that I would just say, oh, okay, I don't understand, I'm ignorant, so therefore I'll block it. And with that, I'm attracting a whole lot of new people. And my life is feeling blessed. So my son's in the UK having a crisis, and I'm cool as a cucumber. And I told him, you did make a mess up, but it's all right too. I don't have that fear of losing him because people still need me. So my kids need me, and I love that leadership that I can still provide and guidance. I've got new circles of friends, but the tough one was losing the in-laws. My mother-in-law I loved to bits. We'd sit to have coffee at 6 o'clock in the morning. She in her nightie, me in my sleep pajamas, talking about art, talking about life, talking about the next thing that we've seen. I mean, she was my best friend, my mother-in-law. So those sometimes it's fine to get new circles of friends, but the ones that you're really dependent on, that still hurts me today after 3 years. That's
yeah. I felt the same way when I got divorced as well, because you put everything into that relationship, and I'm not talking about the spousal relationship, but the extended family relationship, and you
Yeah.
start building, and you think that you have this really strong connection. And what I realize is that everything has a beginning and an ending. And there are people that are meant to be in your life for certain periods of time. And as much as we can mourn the loss of those relationships, we also have to realize that it is the way that it was meant to be. And we meant to be learning certain lessons from those experiences. And if we
But
don't learn the lessons, then we repeat the experience in some way or another,
sure.
or it comes back around. So it's all, and Anissa, this is where the whole spiral dynamics thing comes back into
Yes.
play as well, because at some point or the other, you're going to be having that same experience, but you are not the same. You are different with
Yeah.
each stage that you move into in your life. So yes, I agree with you, but I think for me, what's helped me along is the acceptance of the period that people are meant to be in your life, accepting that, and accepting the lessons that come with it, positive and otherwise.
yeah.
So
That we
Ron,
on.
oh, sorry, Jamila. Sorry, I thought you had concluded on that. Um, I, when Ron speaks, I'm like almost like I'm feeling that exact experience and that initial visceral feeling, like with the disgust and the disappointment, and
Yeah.
like, how the hell, why? Like, we had this tight relation. Same with me. I was the one who told my in-laws, come on, let's buy a house together. We can have a shared home living arrangement. We can help one another out. My friends told me, are you crazy? Why you want to live with your in-laws? And I'm like, no, because I've got this wonderful relationship. We agree to disagree, and that's okay. And when the divorce happened, I saw truth, but I was then in a grudge state. I was still sitting with this apathy and like,
bitterness almost.
like,
Yeah.
like disgust. I was disgusted by how dare you show up this way when I've been in your life 23 or 24, however many years it's been. And we had a good relationship. We agreed to disagree and we showed mutual respect. And obviously, there was lots of different diversity. Colored Muslim, their son is white, Afrikaans background. So there was a lot of that to contend with. And there's 3 grandkids, but I almost felt like, how dare you? Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is a conversation about shifting from grudge
Yeah.
to grit, grace, and gratitude. It's only when I realize they are only operating based on their disappointment, their very own disgust in and just like maybe heartache even, that this person that was part of our lives has just decided to move on. Or this person isn't who I fully thought that they were, but there's this judgment. So how did you shift away, or are you still sitting with a bit of that
I,
dis-ease?
I think I'm definitely, I'm not going to lie to you, there are moments when I need that dependency, but I think the very important thing that I'm learning to is to mourn my
Is to
loss,
yes, to grieve.
to grieve. So I lost my family, my special unit, as superficial as it was to show people the watch and the car and whatnot. I lost a wife of 22 years, and it wasn't hunky dory, but we probably had 15 years of great marriage, and we had lovely kids. I'm mourning the loss of that her family, which was closer to me than my own family. Uh,
Yes.
I'm mourning the loss of friends that feel uncomfortable with my sexuality and or the feeling of loyalty to the ex-wife. I've mourned the loss. I was cross when I got retrenched. Actually retrenched in another company also didn't want me. So
Yes.
you're going through all this loss, some self-inflicted and some, and how dare they not want me? So again, that arrogance about I'm a really nice guy and I am clever, and to a moment where it's still there in the last 5% of my mind, but it's no longer over the 50% threshold. So things will trigger it off. Someone's birthday or Easter, and I remember we went away to the wine farm in Easter, or we went to Singapore over the kids' holidays, and that was fun. But you've got to learn to let go. You've got to learn how to mourn effectively. And through regressive therapy, especially through my brother's suicide, we've gone back to that day, come to the present, and we look forward. Come to the back, come to the present, and look forward. And those are tricks I learned to trick my mind to stop wallowing, because we love to kind of wallow in the negativity, right?
For sure.
So it's the ability to actually just break that past, live in the moment, and then just keep planning. And up until the last 2 years, I didn't want to plan. I didn't know what was happening. So when I got retrenched from the business, the valuable hindsight was I actually wasn't pulling my weight. I was distracted. So I would do the same. So those aha moments of mourning and loss open up your eyes to saying, what was it? I know what it was. It was that, or it was this. And those realization moments are actually quite fun. It's not like regret or anything else like that, but the ability to mourn loss on many different levels, and how you process that is vital to recovery.
Yeah. I think for me also with when I got divorced and everybody seems to just cut you off and you ostracized, and all of a sudden you don't recognize these people because they held you in such high esteem. You were such an integral part of the family and of the community and all the rest of it. And when you say how dare they, Anissa, they are mourning their own loss as well, right? The loss of who you were in their lives. And then I think to myself, but who were you in their lives? you were this person who was the people pleaser. You did everything that you wanted to be seen as perfect
Exactly.
eyes, right?
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
the image that you portrayed for them. You never showed them that you were unhappy. You never showed them your truth. So then how do you
Agree.
expect them to
Mm.
not feel the way that they're feeling? So it's about coming to that understanding of who you are, but also understanding where they're coming from, or looking at the situation through their eyes
The
as well.
grace part, giving
Absolutely.
them grace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it's so important for us to want to feel wanted, to want to feel needed. When you
We all do.
say
We all
that,
do.
you know what, even your job didn't want you, that's the worst possible scenario
Sure.
for us, especially until you come to the realization that we also have to take accountability of our part in this whole situation.
Yeah.
And
Agree.
it's about that brutal honesty of looking within yourself.
Nowhere to hide. Nowhere to hide.
Exactly. And
Those
and as
quiet
much
moments.
as we want everything about us to be all roses and smell all good and look amazing and be positive, we have our
Yes,
faults as well. And
of
that's where the work
course.
comes in acknowledging those faults and then understanding the reaction that you get. And I'm not generally across the board. I'm not putting a blanket out on this, but it's just about learning those little things and understanding them where people are coming from,
Sure.
and accepting
So
that.
I'd like to take a pause, Ron and Jamila, and just acknowledge some of the comments and those that are here on Instagram. Avi, thank you for joining us on Instagram. And then Johnny Swart says, Ron is also an amazing paddle player. Okay, interesting.
I'm actually not amazing. I'm actually brilliant. Amazing is such an overused word, Annie, so really it is. I happen to be a brilliant person who plays with a lot of poor people.
He is an amazing paddle player.
Okay, so then we've got Ronald, our regular, loyal. He's always here. He's always giving us his insight, and he's from the States, Ron. So thank you for coming back each week. I see there was a message from you, Ron, that you said, I might be late for today, but you were here at the start. So thank you, because he was going to the shop. So we appreciate your presence and your contribution. And he also says, I was so busy trying to survive that I would not know success if it spit on me. We can all relate to that. He acknowledges, Ron, it was a tragedy to lose your dad, and you stepped in. How courageous. Hiding behind humor, witty. Familiar coping skill for him, too. It's a shield. Ring a ding ding, baby. Love that. The inevitable explosion, the shattering disintegration, and the courage to heal to your truth. Love that, Ronald. Conformity. This is all the stuff that we're saying, is that we end up becoming these versions to fit the mold, so that that version is liked by everyone else. And then the moment we bring in the boundaries, then people don't like that. Johnny says, never judge people what they are. I like this. You want loyalty? Buy a dog, he says. And then last comment from Ronald, despite the many challenges and disappointments, my wife and I are still together 41 years. What a milestone.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well done. Awesome.
Ron, I want to go back to sort of some of our attachments, our expectations. You spoke about being laid off from work. I use a different language because the States and everyone abroad don't know the term retrenchment. I had to learn that whilst writing on LinkedIn. What the hell do you mean by retrenchment? Okay, so we'll use the term laid off from work. I also was celebrating being laid off from work, actually, but it was just because I wanted a break, and I thought, like, wow, finally that break happened for me. But I was sour grapes in the way the process was handled, because it was incongruent with the vision, mission, purpose, and values of that organization, and even to my own. But that attachment is what leads to our suffering. So, where do you find yourself today in this present moment, possibly still attached? to an expectation of how things must go? Or have you been able to let that go completely?
I have, by and large, let it go.
Mhm.
It's water under the bridge. My feet are a little bit damp still. That's it. But compared to where I was a year ago, the indignation, the shock of saying you're not good enough was devastating. And all I had done for the company for 3 years. And when I listed in my mind, it made me more angry and bitter. And at some point, you just got to let it go. I once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. I'm 50 years old. God willing, I have 35 years, 40 years, 35 years left on this planet.
Mhm.
What is tomorrow? What is this evening? We're playing paddle. Make it count. Make it count. As opposed to what I've lost, it's now what's the opportunity. So I don't know if people believe in psychics, whatever. I saw somebody last year, and she said, I'll be working with footwear. And I was like, I'm not a footwear guy, I'm a clothing guy. And out of the blue, got called out by the CEO, Lacau, and he said, come have a chat, whatever. And I find myself this morning was on a 2-hour conference with 25, 30 managers, and the business is doing okay, but we can do better. And really just having people listen to my guidance and saying, we will rebuild, we will build chapter 2, we will create jobs, we will do this, I've got that in place, I've got that in place. That's sense of fulfillment to try and improve a business or try and get it to the next platform and improve people's lives has been a transformation for me from just trying to please my own life and just trying to show you what car I'm driving, tell you what watch I'm wearing. It's not actually really about giving. And I've only got 35 years to give. That's all. So as opposed to what I can't show or what, and I sound materialistic, and it absolutely was. It's now just about, can I teach something? Can I teach my son humility? Can I teach these people the basics of business? Why are you moaning about this? But here's the reason why. Epiphany moments. As long as I still learn from them as well. This is not just about a teacher-student thing. I want to have that reciprocation. But from knowing everything and being arrogant enough to think I know everything, to using some of those strategic findings to help businesses and to help people and to build confidence that they want to stay and want to rebuild, that's my new purpose.
Mm.
Instead of trying to
So how am I serving?
Amazing. It's amazing because it sounds as if, you just went through a period of merely existing into now finding your purpose and actually living a purposeful life by servitude. Because you realize it's more than just you.
Well, before it was self-servitude, but now it's actually propaganda. It's actually just it's really just about teaching, and it's enriching, if I'm honest. So gone are the days when I want to drive a Ferrari. It's now the days where like, what can make people happy? Are you happy? Are you happy? I'll tell you, I will make you happy. Either or teaching or listening is also part of giving. When I have to sit and listen and hear people's lives in context to my own, I hear about the food prices, whatever, but we still shop at Woolworths. Our lives are still luxurious. Think about those that don't have it. And I'm not a big liberal, I'm not a big everything, but I tell you something, the awakening, you become less selfish, and you actually start listening and thinking about other people, and it's like you in your paddle game. I feel bad for you because you're not a great player. So I will teach you.
Thank you. I'm so grateful, Ron.
I did get a laugh. No, so I always, remember I told you we go serious and then we always we punch it with a bit of humor. But I have a purpose to get up in the morning, and I have a fantastic partner of a year and a half, and he is mature beyond his, and he teaches me things about life and about honesty and about showing my anxiety and showing it's okay to show confidence as well. So that journey of being in a proper relationship, a relationship that I want to be in, and that I'm truthful in who I am. Not everyone's going to accept a gay relationship, and I get that. Some people can't accept straight relationships as well. So, but from
Sure.
masking 22 years to and I don't take it back at all, but the last year and a half has been unbelievably normal. No faking this, no trying that, no doing. It's been normal, and normal can be luxurious sometimes.
It
Just
is.
you don't carrying anything. Normal is absolutely fine.
Normal can be a gift, or
Yeah.
is a gift, when you've been faking it for so long,
Yeah.
right? Or wanting it to appear as if it's normal.
Correct. So, and then if you can build on that success, if you can just build on openness and that vibration again, things happen. And two, I came up with 6 ideas, and 4 of them failed, and I've got 2 which are decent. And so I'm going to make a go of those 2, and maybe next week there'll be something else there. But as opposed to looking inwards and closing, etc., for the last 20 years, it's now open. And I'm every day is like every day is really, really, really cool.
I'm hearing there's no longer also a projection to the outside world. I'm hearing that whatever happens each day is, I'm first going to introspect and say, how am I co-creating? What is my role in this? But if I am creating chaos or turmoil, how am I able to create coherence rather than chaos? And how do I become more centered and grounded in not aspiring for, as you say, the superficial stuff, but being of service and serving humanity in the best possible way? And whether we have 35 years, possibly God willing, or whether we have 3 weeks to live, it is about, how do I impact somebody every single day? And it's interesting for me when I hear your story, nothing in each and every lived experience that you've had, you're not using it today. Because that very things that you've experienced is in service to leading with that in how you're serving with others.
Yeah.
So it's encouraging for me when we have these sort of exchanges and dialogues, because we cannot regret every experience or person or situation, because that is the fundamental stuff that have shaped why you're selling shoes today, for that matter, whatever the reason is.
I agree, and part of my prep notes, which are far away, was really about the conversion prior to post. And Jamila says my story is an interesting one, etc. But I've dumbed it down. It's the way of coping mechanism, and there's been a lot of drama in the last couple of years, and brother's death and all this. But you just cope. You cope until you are really truthful and show vulnerability. And if you find the right person, my partner Andre is like a rock, and the human nature still tends to go back sometimes to those anxious moments and those feelings of lack of confidence, etc., etc. But as opposed to 95.5, it's now 595, and strong and strong. And every day I work on it. Every day I wake up and there's still pangs of anxiety about what I'm doing and what I should be doing. But by 9 o'clock, they're a distant memory, because I'm teaching again, and I'm using those skills, converting those skills that I have got, and teaching people about balance sheets, or about design, or about branding, or the creative, for that matter. And that is super fulfilling. So I hang on to those memories when I get up in the morning to say, who am I going to teach and what am I going to learn today, as opposed to nobody find out I'm gay. And it was the big mask. The way I dressed, the way the cup, I would never have a pink cup. I would never, everything, the way I sat, every day was a struggle to act a certain way. Which brings me back to that tired theme of what you became. And eventually you kind of, Ronald said, shake a can. For me, it was like a hand grenade. It's time to explode and see where the chips fall. And it didn't fall nicely for everything, but you know what? There's not a single regret about taking that step. I also knew I was going to do it. I also knew I was going to lose weight. So at my heaviest, I was unhealthy. I couldn't breathe properly. I was asthmatic. I knew I was going to divorce. I knew I was going to come out as gay. I knew I was going to lose the weight. The absolute power, I didn't know when and I didn't know how, but 4 years ago, I had that moment, said, this is going to change. And somehow it manifested itself. And I think I've learned that lesson from a positive angle, is to manifest positivity, teach, learn, be kind. And I promise you, it just comes back. It really does.
You're speaking a lot about learning and, teaching. What about unlearning? What about you? What are the things besides the mask that you've worn that you still need to unlearn in this present day?
It will be okay. I suffer from anxiety, that it's not all going to be perfect. And Andre and friends and Jamila and Etienne and my friends say, it's okay that you're going to fail.
Okay,
it is not the end
that's
of the
powerful.
world. It's not the end of the world. And the context of having a bad day and dropping a cup, world. No, it's a cup.
Sorry, Ron. So I'm linking this as I've listened to this entire conversation. At the start, you said you 6 kids and you're the baby and the youngest, and there was this need to always prove yourself. So I'm almost realizing that adaptation of having to prove oneself to feel like you belong is a significant contributor to that anxiety, right?
Yeah.
And the anxiety of having to show up and say, what is the plan? Where am I getting to? How am I going to get success? How am I going to win? All of the stuff that you've just spoken about. So what you're unlearning, I'm hearing, is an adaptation that was taken on, and now having to relearn how to be this new version of you. And in fact, I almost want to challenge, it's not a damn new version. It's coming back to that essence of who you were always.
So I want to give you an example. I forgot to mention this. Something that's, I've been out of matric now, or senior here for those in the States. I've been out for 30 years. Out of the 6 kids, all 6 kids went to the same school. 5 of the 6 kids all were either head boy, deputy head, prefects, etc., except for the last one. Everybody passed with flying colors except me. I failed matric. The parents all came to valedictory service for all 5 kids, not to mine. So that ability to find your place in the sun, to show your importance, I mean, it's like daylight back to me, and that's 30 years ago in terms of trying to be validated in the family.
Yeah.
And that is in your DNA. That will shape a life. You know?
For sure.
So to unhide that is to
Unlearn.
Is to say not everybody's going to like you. That's okay.
I think also
Sure.
when you come from a big family and being the youngest in the family, you or the youngest, when there's a big age difference between the other siblings, you don't feel seen at all.
Yeah.
And you spend your life wanting to be seen by outside eyes. But I think the change comes when you start to see yourself. And you start to celebrate yourself. And then you realize that you don't need to be seen by anybody else. So you stop being the people pleaser. You stop trying to conform to what you think everyone else wants you to look like.
Yeah.
For you to be accepted.
So I would often do shock things in the family. I dressed up as Tina Turner and sang Tina Turner for a school concert and brought the house down in front of 1,500 people. I spoke for 45 minutes at my brother's funeral and brought the house down. It was selfish moments of trying to stand out and be loved. And I think that's what comedians and people of humor try to do, is try and that applause and that gratitude I was getting from strangers, I wasn't getting it from my closest circle. So the ability to not get applause every day is actually fine now.
But were you getting it then from yourself?
No.
Exactly.
No,
the point. But you are now.
I am now.
Because you're standing in your truth, and that's when it becomes reflected then from the outside in. It's only when you have it within yourself and
But that
acknowledge it.
indoctrination of just that history of wanting to belong and shouting out being the youngest, to saying it's okay not to be heard. Actually, I'm happy with what's happening inside here,
Yeah.
and that resonates with my business, resonates with my colleagues, my subordinates, my partner, and it's like a different person.
And it's when you make that decision of self-love,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
allowing yourself
Sure.
the grace and allowing yourself the it's not even a privilege, you owe it to yourself to start with you.
Yeah, because I wasn't good enough, so now I'm good enough. Yeah.
Ron, so let's come back to your partner. I think you said his name was Andre.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's your rock, right? And so he's this pillar that you go to. And I find that part of that sense of belonging and wanting to fit and is we almost wanting others to reciprocate how we are for them, right? Well, not almost, we do that. We want them to reciprocate. With Andre being this rock, I want to ask you, is there a fine line there? Because, when we expecting someone else to be our rock, whereas we should be being that for ourselves, is there maybe just a possible fine line within that?
Correct. I'll put it in context. My relationship currently, the way it makes me want to give 51%. And he wants to give 51%. So therefore, I want to give 50%. And he wants to give 54%. So that normality is my foundation of belonging. I have anxiety in the evenings about my kid now in the UK. He's a calming influence. He has anxiety at work. I'm calming for him. And we're building each other into a network. But he's a much younger guy than I am. I met him at 12 years. He was playing with Lego in the 1 hour. I said, no. He was playing with Play-Doh.
But in essence, listen, the essence of the thing, right, what I'm hearing you say is I'm not looking for somebody to compliment me, to complete me. This person is complimenting me, right? Because we often build our homes, our sanctuaries in other people's hearts, and then they break our hearts. And our reality is then we are broken and we have to grieve and mourn again, and the process starts all over. Hence, this why I asked the question: how is Andre your rock? Because self-love and acceptance means that we are our own rock.
Correct. So I'll tell you the story. I met him off a social media platform two years ago, and we hit it off straight away for 4 or 5 months, and then he broke up with me instantly, and I didn't understand. I was completely shocked, and I couldn't believe it, and I was disgusted, and I was hurt, and it took me a year, and I always knew I was going to get back with him. It took me a year to understand my blind spots, that I was too aggressive, too dependent on him. I wanted to take leadership. I showed indecisiveness and chaos, which he doesn't do. So I wasn't pertaining to any of his needs. He liked structure and order, and I'm ADH and off the chart. And we got back together on a firm footing, and it's been a year and a half now, and I can work from home, and he walks in yesterday afternoon, and it's like we've been together for 1 week. It's that excitement and buzz to see him. So it's not about necessarily, to your point, leaning on him. We both lean up against each other, and it's rock solid. And yes, he goes through times of anxiety, and so do I. And I don't try and fix him. He fixes himself.
Here we go.
My very nature is, you bumped your car, can I help you? What's happened? Let me try to do that. I'm a jack of all trades. But I know not to try and fix him. I give him space, I give him support, and he does the same for me, and then it builds our confidence in the relationship. And the trust is massive. He is sweet and kind, and then I want to be kinder, and then he wants to be kinder, and then I want to be kinder. And and that for me is the way that codependency works in a relationship. When before my marriage, it was superficial, and I bought things to be loved. So the Louis Vuitton handbag and the BM and the whatnot was about her family and my ex-wife saying, how good am I a husband? But there was nothing besides a wallet and a purse and a ring and a piece of jewelry.
And I think with relationships, or with the personal relationships, Anissa, we are continuously working on ourselves. So we never ever
Yes.
a perfect, being. We never perfect, so that I can come as one perfect being to be with someone else who's completely healed and perfect. We're still going through our process of learning and identifying who we are and breaking down, all those learned behaviors and patterns and unlearning and whatnot. But it's about being with someone who allows you that space to be able to grow on your own path and as on your collective path together. So more than one being a rock for each other, I think
it literally is we lean on each other. And in the first thing I said in this podcast was I was tired, and that was tired for trying to prop everybody up. So I don't have to. I'm vulnerable enough to lean on somebody, and the motives are just about formality and being there for somebody. When before I was the one picking up the tab, and this one died, and I was that one. I was the rock, and then you lose focus, and you lose your job, and you lose your friends and stuff like that. And it takes you a real introspection to understand what your blind spots are.
Correct. And I was just listening to a podcast by Simon Sinek, and he was speaking about friendship. And I think this can, extend to a relationship as well. And it's about being there and holding that space for someone. So when they are going through the worst, they don't need you to say, but this is how you're supposed to proceed forward, and these are the lessons. They need you to come and sit in their mud with them, and never to get out until that person says, I'm ready to get out of the mud. It's not about saying that this is better, be happy that this didn't turn out that way, you're okay, you're lucky that to have me or whatever. It's just about holding that space and being there, being present with someone. And I think that's how we should look at our relationships as well. In the bumps that we go encounter along the way in our journeys, and also you're not being a rock, but you are there to support.
Yeah, and the one thing, the other lesson I'm learning is about gratefulness. Being grateful for what you have. And again, I mentioned 20 minutes ago, I'm not a liberal or I'm not anything else, but my home is stable. My kids are doing great. My friends are doing great. Business is okay, but that's okay. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I'm not on the breadline. I'm grateful that I have friends. I'm grateful that somebody invited me to kind of share the experience. I didn't know if it was textured enough, to be honest, because I've dumbed it down. But so I think human nature, I think quite easily could slip in terms of what could be, and it's not good enough, and we want more and we want more. And certainly I can experience that. But now it's just okay. Now it's just okay. Normality is just okay. Because it gives you
the texture was good, darling. The texture was beautiful. It was in flow.
Academy Award. I want the award.
Jamila, I'm going to leave it to you to close, because we've also had Coach Claire and Khadija join us on Instagram. So thank you for being here. I have not acknowledged you, but we have to come to a close. So I'm going to leave Jamila to conclude today.
Yeah, the hour just got away from us today. I mean, we didn't even have that many chances to acknowledge everybody, but we thank everyone for joining us this week, as you always do, especially Ron, Johnny. Thank you so much for showing up and listening and contributing. And to our guest, Ron, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing. Thank you for your vulnerability, because it helps so many other people. Just by us sharing our experiences and our stories, helps the next person when they're going through it. And that's been our intention that we set when we started this podcast. So Thank you so much. Thank you for being such an inspiration. I truly, truly mean that.
Oh,
And I'm
thanks, man.
so grateful to have you in my life.
Thank you. Likewise.
And Anissa, as well, to you for making this possible. And to all those who have maybe perhaps commented or asked questions. Ron, if you can just have a look at the Instagram,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, and just respond.
Sure.
And we will see you all next week again. Anissa, any closing comments from you?
Not from me. I just want to say thank you to Ron also again for just coming here and being real. I love that about today. And now let's get energized by the realness and forget about the tiredness.
Yeah.
So I'll close off with that. And Ron, is there anything you want to say before we end the live? And then you can stay on because we always do a short debrief afterwards.
As you were talking, I have only one thing to say. It's going to be okay.
Love that.
It's
Wise
it's just going to be okay. That's all we need.
Yes.
Ability, and it's just going to be okay. That's cool. No drama. Okay. That's me.
I love that. And on that note, I'm ending the live, but Ron, don't go away. Jamila, stay.
Sure.
And then I'll end on